Very good. Are we ready to begin?
Almost.
Okay.
All right.
I will call the Wisconsin Arts Board Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order. And let's first of all, thank you all for joining us today. And Matt is new, and I appreciate your willingness to serve on the committee, Matt. If we could introduce ourselves as to who we are and where we are from. And Susan, could we start with you?
Well, I can't hear.
I thought you could.
Grant.
I can barely hear.
Oh dear.
Susan, John's just mic is not so loud. That's it. George
Oh,
has
is
got
that,
set, and so John's is just not as loud.
okay, no, I just put this up to 100%. I did, I know, I brought it up.
I'll speak louder as well. Susan, if you could introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
Susan lived Merrimack, Wisconsin.
Very good. And Matt, please.
Matt Wallach, McFarland, Wisconsin.
Very good. Brian.
Brian Kelsey, Fish Creek, Wisconsin.
Karen.
Karen Geshko, staff of the Arts Board.
And Dale, we'd best have you introduce yourself as well.
Dale Johnson, Arts Board staff.
And George.
And George Segros, Arts Board staff.
I'm John Potter from Hudson, and we'll begin this meeting. And I think a point of order, we can simply have consensus rather than make motions for a meeting, for a committee of this size, don't you think?
I think so.
So I will ask for, is there a consensus for the approval of the agenda?
Yes.
We'll proceed. So our main function today is to approve a budget for fiscal year 2025 and recommend that to the board. And George, if you would be so good as to take us back to fiscal year 24 and give us an update on that, and then tell us anything we need to know about the budget that you sent for 25.
Absolutely. Okay, so for fiscal 24, I wanted to let you know that we have in fact requested an extension from the National Endowment for the Arts. And that is due to the fact that we have the 50th anniversary awards that have been slow to materialize, not from great lack of trying, no, great trying, I should say. Great trying on behalf of the staff to reach out to these groups, and they're getting into the process, and it's part of the reason they're not normally in the process as it is. So they're being introduced to the process, to the Arts Board, all at the same time. So
really important work. Thank you. Yeah,
thanks to Caitlin and to Karen and to Dale for the work that they're doing in reaching out to those folks. And just the other part of this, of course, is it's year-end accounting. So making sure everything is in the buckets it's supposed to be, making sure the expenses are all in that they need to be in. So that's what's going on with FY24. FY25, so I gave you two pieces to look at and it's related to 25. And you may have, as John reminded me today, you may have seen both of them at one point or another. The first was the budget that we give to the National Endowment. So their process is, we're going to give you this amount of money. And so this year, that amount of money was $1,083,000. So I'm going to give you $1,083,000. Now tell me what you're going to do with it. And so we come back with the budget that we put forward to them. What you'll learn in both of these documents, the budget hasn't really changed all that much, except in a couple of ways. And so I'll just tick through those, both in referencing the NEA budget and then the budget draft as you're used to seeing it from the Arts Board. The first thing to note, of course, is that we're attempting to add a staff person. So this person will be a communications person that will also provide administrative support to the grants process. The PD has been created. The dollar amounts that you see here and in the other were given to us by DOA based on the classification of the position that we have coming in. Again, the reason we're able to ask for this is because this comes out of our federal money. If this had been a state ask, it might have been possible, but much more difficult. And so the status of that, since we're on it, is to say that DOA budget is about to receive the PD, and they need to just approve the position authority, and then we'll finalize things with DOA HR, and then hopefully be able to start asking for that position. So that's good, but of course that shows us that we have both salary and fringe increasing on the federal side. When we look at travel in the coming year, we have the NASA conference, which is in Puerto Rico, which Dale, Caitlin, Karen, and I will attend, as will Brian. So you'll see a reference to national conferences, and that amount has gone up a bit. And then we reflect the fact that Brian's going to be part of the team in Puerto Rico. And then the only other thing to highlight on this project form is the amount for creation and presentation. We haven't broken it out here, but it's the staff's recommendation that, as we did in 2024, we break out the $60,000 for the 50th anniversary awards, because it's our estimation that once we've gotten these groups in, they're going to need a second opportunity to be part of us before it becomes something that maybe develops as a habit for them to come back again. So as we've talked about in the past, the $5,000 in increase between FY24 and FY25 was a $5,000 increase to Poetry Out Loud. So Poetry Out Loud went from 20,000 last year, it will be 25,000 this year, which is good because in part, the person that we have operating that for us needs to get to DC to participate with her peers. And we just haven't had the resource to do that for her. So this extra money will allow that to happen. Now, if we want to take a look at the FY25 budget as we show the Arts Board version, that first page, we talk about match. And it's just, again, the opportunity to show what shows up in the state legislation for us versus what's real. So in the state legislation, it looks like we have $1,098,000. And that's because of the Art and Craft Fair Directory fees, which we've said many times, we don't have that publication anymore. But it's an authority to spend it if we were to receive those dollars. So, and then once you back that out, and then you add the 5,000, you're to the 1,083,000. Now, in order to meet the match with the feds, the state is going to have to come up with that additional $5,000. It is the understanding of DOA at this moment that our budget supplements for the pay plan will get the state side to that $5,000. So in other words, there's no trip to joint finance necessary because the match will be maintained by using the staff salaries. And just as a quick trip through, if you look at the summary snapshot, again, you're going to see a little bit difference in creation and presentation, and that's between the two documents. That's part of the increase to make sure that we have the 60,000 for the 50th anniversary awards. And then I just highlighted again for ourselves that other aids, the 36,400 is Arts Midwest. As of this moment, they're holding steady with that dues amount that we pay for out of aids. There's a possibility that at some point they'll finally be able to increase the dues. I think the last time we attempted to get there, and I was on the committee at Arts Midwest that was trying to help them figure it out, I think it was 2006. And then all hell broke loose in the economy, and so they chose not to do that, and they've not been able to raise it since then. But the other thing I wanted to note here is, please always remember, if I'm not here for some reason, that we pay Arts Midwest out of state funds. And the reason that we do that is because Arts Midwest also gets money from the NEA. And if we pay out of our NEA funds, they can't use our dollars for match. So it's an important point that we have to make, and just carrying forward with it. As far as operations are concerned, if you look at the summary page on operations, it's again where you see the increase in staff. I think what's stark about all this is if you look at the operations side for supplies and services, and you realize the only amount that the state is paying besides the 3 staff people is to DOA for their assessments, right? Otherwise, there's nothing else there anymore, nothing. Now, DOA is talking about the fact that there may be a way to get recoup some funding for the state side. It's something I'm not quite sure they understand yet. And so when they understand it and explain it to us, we'll be able to explain it to you. But, we've talked about in the past, and what do the DOA assessments, what are they? It runs from everything from risk assessment, so insurance, the state is self-insured, to work with the personnel people at DOA, their financial services. So our assessment, for example, is based on the number of grants we give. So they tick that off as far as how they determine our assessment. So there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 categories. 12 categories of assessment, of which only one of them is truly only ours. And that's the grant making assessment. So for them to take care of our federal dollars, there's like a $250 charge. So yeah, I know it's hard to believe, but that's true. So just so you know, it's not like there isn't a lot of work being done on the DOA side, whether it's personnel, accounting, et cetera, but they are charging back for it, and we're paying for it out of those assessments. Yeah, otherwise, when Robert at DOA and I went through this, he had gone through and looked at all of the different account codes and made sure that what we were applying in 25 made sense based on actuals out of 24. So that was really important to the work that we're doing. So, and then the only other page is the Poetry Out Loud page, which you see, and contractual services and the travel are the biggest things. And the travel isn't solely the trip to DC for the coordinator, but it's also getting people to Madison for the state championship, which will happen again in March of next year. So questions, amplifications, Karen, or?
No. Not unless there's some specific questions.
Is there in this, I know, so are you eliminating the need for 1310? You think that Senator Ballweg is going to help us with not doing it?
Yeah,
There's no need. We're balanced. Okay.
Right. So we've got to come up with $5,000.
Right.
Not 150 or whatever.
Right.
And so basically what DOA is saying is the salary supplement, because there's a 2% increase.
Right.
So that on the state side, the state supplements.
Right.
So they will give us additional money,
Okay.
which they believe will ultimately be at least the 5,000 and
Okay.
make the match.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. And just thank you for bringing it up. And as a reminder, the federal side, we have to supplement within the federal dollars that we have.
George, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but with
Hmm.
new hire, does that salary reflect what we anticipate being the total cost for the fiscal year or their entire salary? Because the person's not on yet, correct?
Right. So right now it reflects the whole thing. So depending on how fast we get this done, you know, we'll be great, but we'll save some money because they won't start right away, obviously.
But that would also decrease our state side.
No, because this is a federal position.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Right. No worries. But yeah, go ahead.
In
Greg.
this, are we taking into consideration looking at our staff's current pay rates and where we can try to push them and steps that we can take to try to reclassify?
This takes into consideration increases that we've been able to take care of through I never remember what the acronyms are for, but DIRAs and DMCs. So we've been able to do some of that. And there's also some work being done by DOA on some of these class codes that
Okay.
may also reflect on this. But no, this is not reflective of reclass.
Okay. I just, the one salary I'm concerned about.
Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to say that's been taken
Remedied?
care of within
Okay.
this. Yeah. Because the increase that we got also will be calculated in the 2% that the employees are getting anyway. So the increase happens and then the 2% is put on top of that. So this is all good.
And this person's happy as well?
Yes, sir.
As happy as they can be. Okay.
Any other questions about this particular budget?
Do we have consensus that this is the budget we would like to recommend to the full board in September?
Sure. I mean, I support that. Matt? Susan?
Yeah, the only concern that I have, and I guess this isn't so much of a budget issue, but more of a policy one. Just relates to that new position at what looks like, I assume, is a non-broadbanded position at roughly $20 an hour. And that's it within state government, that's pretty low, especially in the Madison area. And I guess I just have a bit of concern about that salary, sort of irrespective of what the position does. I recognize with non-broad, depending on your classification, with a non-broadbanded position, you don't get a choice in how you set that salary. But also it doesn't, that kind of position doesn't lead to any sort of longevity either very often, which is just one of the pieces I want to throw out there for consideration.
And I can relate to that because we tried hiring someone at 40,000 and they found another job very quickly here in Door County. So
I have to start people at $20 an hour working in the warehouse. This is these are uneducated jobs. And I can't even imagine getting somebody on your staff for that price.
well, I know they're dealing with state government, with, just what they can actually get by through state government.
It might just be helpful to have another session just on how all of this works, so you guys understand that within state government. Like you can't make more than your supervisor, who can't make more than their supervisor. I mean, it's a whole thing. And so there's a lot of complexities and layers.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm happy to have that conversation. I will say we have lots of staff who make more than their supervisor, where I am, and we're constantly advocating to increase supervisor pay because of that. But
I think it might be a DOA attached thing then. I'm not sure what it is, but that certainly has been the case in the past. And yeah, let's do that. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah, and I should say that this is the zone in which this position gets classed. So it's not as if we have the ability to go, you know what, let's double that, guys, because we feel better about that, or you know, half again as much. We don't have that level of flexibility. Will it hamper our ability to hire someone? It
Maybe.
might.
It will.
And
It
if that's the
will.
case, then we'll have to be creative about what we do. For example, obviously we had Sarah with us for a year. She was going on to graduate school, but she was with us for a year and she was invaluable in the work that she did. But for the moment, this is exactly what DOA has given us. So John Johnson's got his hand up. Welcome, John
what's the
Johnson.
position? I'm coming in late. Sorry, I'm late. I didn't have this on my calendar.
A communications specialist.
Got it. Yeah, those are very underpaid at the state level.
John, thank you for joining us. If you could just state your full name and where you're from.
John Johnson, Madison, Wisconsin.
Thanks, John, and thanks for serving on the committee as well. So George just reviewed the FY25 budget, and we're looking for consensus on this. George, is this necessarily the added position? Is that necessarily a full-time position, and could we make it a part-time position if that were necessary and it were more attractive?
I'm sure that there are ways to skin this, and including, would that person have to be in Madison to do this work?
Yes.
You know, which is clearly an open invitation these days when the people are offering that kind of flexibility as well. So, you know, there may be other things other than the money that will be attractive to somebody. Clearly, I'm not saying money's not attractive, but it's not the only tool in the toolkit. But yes, we can definitely go there and do different things if we have to.
George, the classification itself, is it a communication specialist? Is that the classification that's being used?
Yep, it is.
And so are we only going to post it at the minimum of the $20.65, or is it going to be sort of the full range and then we select within that range?
I think it's our intention to select within the range. So, you know, it's going to be up to DOA what their counsel is, and obviously we can certainly request to do what we'd like to do. But I don't know enough about what they're going to say to us to say that yes, of course we can go at the upper end of the band. But that's part of the strategy.
What is the range of? Do you know off the top of your head what the range is for a communication specialist?
I can look.
I don't off the top of my head.
I'm going to look back and see, Matt, if you're looking at it, you can bring it forward too.
On the alpha list here, the appointment maximum is 30. Okay. Oh, I was looking at a different specialist. It looks like the appointment max is 2712 for comm specialist. For a comm specialist advanced, it's higher.
What is it? What's the minimum, Matt?
16.
Jesus Christ. Oh, I'm sorry.
1657.
Okay, thank you.
people are better off going to work at McDonald's.
Well, I don't know if they get the same benefit. I don't know if
Yeah,
what the
they
benefit
do.
package is. I don't know what the benefit at this package at the state level is, if it's
Wow.
better than the public's, the private sector.
So now that we have a full committee, I am going to ask for a motion to approve the recommended FY25 budget.
I so move.
Thank you, Susan. Do I have a second?
I will second. I don't know. I'm ex officio, so I should not be seconding.
I can second Wallach.
Thank you, Matt. All in favor of presenting the FY25 budget as given to us by the staff and recommending it to the full board in September, signify by saying aye.
Point of order.
Yes.
I don't believe I got a copy of the proposed budget.
Check your email from July 5th, Friday, July 5th at 8:25 a.m.
Okay. I will abstain. Thank you.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 George, can I vote?
I have to go back and look at the
I'm on
bylaws.
every committee, so
Yeah. But it may be
we have our
silent that
bylaws specialist who's
Right.
running this meeting, Mr. Potter. Do you remember?
I don't think you do vote, but I won't swear to that.
Okay.
So all my reference would be the FIPS bylaws, and ex officio members did not vote.
yeah, and unless it says
I'm
voting.
sorry. Can I gotta ask? I'm behind the eight ball, and I apologize for being behind the eight ball. It's my first meeting on this group or this committee. So this is actually looking at it, the budget for this fiscal year. It's not the budget request for the next biennium, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, this is all straightforward. I'm going to remove my abstention. I can vote. Thank you.
Would you like to vote aye, John?
I will vote aye.
Very good. Then the budget has been approved for FY25, and we will recommend that to the board in September. I am not going to be available for that meeting, so is there someone that could recommend it in my stead?
Matt, John, or Susan?
Matt.
Sure, I'm there.
That
I
doesn't
could do
sound
it.
like me.
I could do it as you need.
John, we'll have you do that then. Thank you. And then, George, would you like to take us through the 25 through 27 biennial budget submission? Or I shouldn't say take us through it, but maybe give us any highlights there?
So yeah, I wanted to be able to sort of set the table for what's going to come up next. So as you know, we sent a survey to the field, and we got 109 responses. And in addition to the responses, we also gave people the opportunity to let us know if they wanted us to talk with them about their responses. And so I think in the end, I'll have done 10 of those. And they've been really eye-opening in addition to the surveys themselves. But the next steps, the External Relations Committee is going to meet in a couple of weeks and go through the responses. And I had the chance over the weekend to go through, because we of course gave them open-ended responses. So I went through and tried to group them up and tried to see what trends exist, et cetera. And then I think External Relations will have the first cut at saying, okay, what kinds of things should we be thinking about supporting? And the staff will take that direction and then come back to the budget committee and say, okay, this is what the field told us we need. This is what we think we can ask for. What do we all think about that? And do we appreciate where those pots are? So you guys will be read into what has been spoken of by the field. I think, as I was saying to John before, part of the challenge will be not only taking the input from the field and the input from the committees, but also speaking with the governor's office about what may or may not be appropriate in our submission. And so that's what's coming up. The deadline date for all of this is September 15th, which of course is after the Arts Board meets in September. But I think, if I'm not incorrect, is that a Friday or a Sunday is the 15th, is it? Yeah, so we may need to do something in advance, or at least courier it from up north via email in that final day on that Friday. So we may have to do a meeting at the front end that we don't normally do on those travel meetings. So having said that, what we're doing is we're trying to cobble together both the input from the field, then start to think about what is a dollar amount that we'll be able to pass or should be able to, or we should think could be, and then putting all that together. Just a sort of a high level thought about what's been responded to. People said we are understaffed. We are paying our staff. This is one of my favorite lines from the interviews. We're paying our staffs the market rate if the market rate is from 1975. So staffing is a key issue. Space is an issue. And then the fact of staffing leads to programming. So either and or more creative programming and or more equitable and accessible programming. So it all sort of fits together. And then how to get at that with our A, existing programs, or B, tailoring something would be the next conversations. Brian and John in the field, I think the point that I think is a part of this, but underlies it, is that these problems existed prior to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Understaffing and not market rate staffing, and COVID just made it A, more obvious, and B, sent people to the exits. Meaning, if I was a tech person, I might leave the arts field to go be an electrician because I get better benefits, better hours, et cetera, and I'm not worrying about whether I'll have a job tomorrow. And so I think that's a third component of this: understaffed, under-resourced, paying the staff, and then also a limited staffing pool. So that's one component that the survey is showing right now, and there are others.
I think I don't think any of that surprises me, and I think it will forever be there. But I think you're right about the pandemic exacerbating it. And then the other thing is losing public funding not keeping up. And even though CMP grants have gone up, keeping up with how much the cost of doing business has gone up from both a retention standpoint of retaining your current employees, but also finding new employees to work in it. You're right. Gig economy people did stop to a degree piecemealing work together and doing a bunch of 1099 work, and have switched to finding more steady employment. But thank God there are still those who are doing it. I think they're younger in their career, but people younger in their career are no longer willing to start, ironically, at $20 an hour. And, there's been so much cultural shift that I think that even though this was a pre-pandemic issue, I think the urgency of it only got turned up and amplified like 20 times louder.
Yeah.
So that's why you're hearing it and why at some point it needs to be addressed, or kind of this nonprofit arts work kind of begins the collapse.
Yeah, and I do think part of it is generational as well. Just drawing the line. It's nice that you people, like us old folks, it's nice that you people want to work your life off, you know, and spend 24 hours a day thinking about work, but that's not us. We're not going to kill ourselves for this. So we're going to draw the line and leave when we think we need to leave. Nothing wrong with that, but it is a culture shift in how the work gets done, which also exacerbates staffing. If you're not going to have the same level of push, you're going to either need more people or whatever. So that, and Brian, I think you touched on the issue of inflation in costs for everything from people to materials to everything like that, is another piece. And then a theme that sort of went throughout is the notion of reliable funding. And just to say how the world views some of this stuff, we just got a message today. We put out the word, come and celebrate with us the last 50th anniversary thing on the 16th, right? To which we got a response from somebody who's generally unhappy with us, saying something to the effect of, well, what are you people doing celebrating the fact that 50 when you're 50th in the nation, rada, rada, rada. Which of course, that's somebody who the glass is going to be half empty always. And so I can't say much about that except to say, you know what, there's been a lot of excellent work that's done in 50 years. And given the constraint of resources, even more so to be thought of. So,
Yep.
But anyway, so that's kind of what's coming down the pike as far as assembling the inputs to what might be our budget submission. This is exciting. We haven't done this in a lot of years. And generally we've been saying, how will we cut things? So to even have the opportunity to say, here's what we'd like to do to increase. It's kind of exciting.
Thank you, George. Do we have any further business for the committee to address? If not, and keep me honest here, Brian, can I simply adjourn the meeting, or do we need to take action on that?
No, I think this is a committee. I still think you should call for a motion in a second.
I will do that. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved, Wallach.
Thank you, Matt. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Susan. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good. My thanks to you again, and especially to John and Matthew for